welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Jay.
I'm Nessa. Today we have Brock McGillis, which most of our listeners probably already know you, but we still would like you to introduce yourself for everyone.
I doubt they know me.
Wait, who's
I'm
this guy?
just, yeah, I'm just some boy in Toronto, hanging out with my dog that you randomly saw on the internet and asked to come on. Um, no, I guess, how can I describe myself? I was the first openly gay men's professional hockey player. Now, I used to call myself an advocate, but I'd say I'm more of a activist. I don't know, somewhere in there. Um, I'm a public speaker. I travel around the world speaking, again. And I do a show, or did a show, I don't know if they're bringing us back, with RuPaul's Drag Race, like World of Wonder on WoW Presents Plus. So I do that. I don't know, I do a bunch of stuff all over the map. I'm, a chameleon of sorts, I guess.
Love it.
So, you mentioned that you're currently touring. You're doing a junior hockey team's tour. Can you tell us about how that's going?
I'm doing an everything tour. I just got back from like southwestern Manitoba. Like I passed about 750,000 farms. It was interesting. It was cool actually, and I spoke to 6 high schools. Um, I worked with the Manitoba Junior League, where I spoke to all the teams in their league. I just worked with a team in the BCHL. In the summer, I worked with the Buffalo Sabres prospects at their development camp. I'm headed to speak at a conference in Ottawa next week. Then I'm off to Calgary to work with coaches and management from their entire minor hockey. Um, I have a few things that I can't mention yet that are going to be pretty cool that I've been working on for years that are finally coming to fruition. So there's a lot on the go. I like being booked and busy, and I'm very fortunate that people continue to do so.
Would you be able to speak a little bit about what it is that you're talking to these teams about without, going into detail? Because obviously this is.
I'll go into detail. I don't mind going into detail.
Okay. I wasn't sure because.
No,
We...
I won't share like people's personal stories or what they say to me. I would never break confidentiality with individuals, but no, I'm happy to share what I say and the types of questions I get asked, both like, you know, some of them to society may seem ignorant, but I don't think they are because it's just meeting people where they're at. Um, I share my life. I share. I start off by talking about being 6 years old, and it was the first time I was with my parents, and I was watching a movie, and there was a gay character, and I said, "What if I'm gay?" And they said, "If you're gay, you're gay. You're Brock. We love you." And that story remained in the back of my mind, but it wasn't at the forefront because hockey was, and I became a stereotypical Canadian kid. I grew up, at the rink. I lived down the street from an arena in a small town in northern Ontario, and I'd go every day after school hoping the ice was open. And if teams showed up, I was hoping they'd be missing a goalie. My parents would drop off all my meals on the weekends. And I got pretty good. And before I knew it, I'd moved on to AAA and junior hockey, and um, I started to recognize I didn't relate to what the boys were talking about in the locker room, and that I didn't feel the same way. But I couldn't allow myself to be me and be gay because I didn't think I could play the sport I love and be gay because of the language I heard. Language I heard in the locker room, language I heard on the ice, language I heard at parties, language I heard everywhere made me think I was bad or wrong. So I hid it, and then beyond hiding it, I adhered to, like, I suppressed it actually. I wasn't even hiding. So I adhered to the norms of the culture. I became a womanizing hockey bro. I walked into every room like I owned it. I thought I was so sweet. There's a big eye roll there if people are listening to this. I dated a ton of women. I'm ashamed to admit that I was a womanizing guy, but I was, and I think it's important to admit and own, and it's part of the growth that I want to have and share with other players. But what they didn't know is I go home at night and I cry. I was playing major junior hockey and I was crying every single night. I would drop my girlfriend off, my friends off, whoever, and I hated myself. Quite honestly, and trigger warning, I don't want to, trigger anyone, but I was self-harming. I wanted to die. And it impacted my career. I mean, I started drinking every day to numb it. I had season-ending injuries throughout my teens and into my mid and late 20s, every single season. I was a mess, and my career derailed. I went from being on NHL draft lists to playing in the minors in Europe, and finally at 23, I said, I need to figure this out. So I came back from that season. I went to Sudbury, where I'm from, but I didn't want to date anyone there or figure it out there because it's Northern Ontario and everyone knows everyone, so people would figure it out quick. So I went to Toronto. I dated somebody for 3 years without a soul knowing. I went on a date. I was like, yep, you're gay. And at first I thought my career would get back on track and everything would get back on track and I'd be happy. But now I was in the closet and I was suppressing. I went from suppressing to hiding it, and I wasn't only hiding myself, I was hiding somebody else. And it got worse, and I was struggling even more, and we even had an alias with his friends so they couldn't find me on social media. And it was really sad, and I was struggling immensely. Nobody knew. Relationship ended. I tried to get my life back on track in terms of hockey, and it wasn't happening. I wasn't happy. And finally I came out to family and friends, and I stayed closeted in the sport because I thought it would impact my career. And when I retired, I started working with athletes. I used to run training businesses. I did off-ice training, on-ice skill development, goalie development. I was working with over 100 players a day. And I was afraid that if parents knew I was gay, they wouldn't want their kids to work with me. So I hid it for years, and I thought I was doing a great job until one day a mom called me, and working with hockey players meant a lot of calls from hockey parents. They are a unique breed of human. And this mother calls me and says, Brock, I want to set you up on a date. And I said, oh, dear God, no. And I'm thinking, how do I get out of this? But then I thought, I wonder what she thinks my type is. So I said, what's her name? And she said, Steve. And I said, what? And she said, Brock, you're gay. And I said, what? And I said, how do you know this? And she said, oh, my son told me. Her son's 15. And I said, how does he know this? And she's like, all the boys know. They've known for years. And I initially panicked. I was employing people. I thought I would lose all my athletes. I thought nobody would want to work with me. I thought I would lose. How was I going to pay my bills? How was I going to pay my employees? What was I going to do? I was freaked out. And I thought, well, all these hockey boys who know I'm gay, these hockey bros, choose to work with me in Northern Ontario. How cool is that? I thought about telling them, and I instead decided to do a little experiment, a sociology experiment, and I decided to observe their behaviors. Kind of like animals in the wild, hockey players in their natural habitat. And I started to notice that anytime they'd say something homophobic, they would freeze up and apologize to me. And I'd sort of shrug and nod and keep things moving. And I always tried to curb racist, sexist, and homophobic language with my athletes, but I just kind of move it along with the homophobic stuff just because I didn't want to like give it away. After a while, I started thinking, cool, maybe I'm creating a shift here. Like, hockey is an insular world, it's a bubble, and I have this tiny bubble within that bubble. And maybe we're creating a shift. And then I thought, or maybe they go to school and call kids fags. And genuinely, I had no idea. And then one day I wasn't there and I had a sprint coach hiking with some of my athletes on a track. And at the end of a 2-hour workout, I told them they had 10 more sprints or something. And one of the younger players that was there, was about 16, looked at the sprint coach and said, "This is so gay, I can't believe you're making us do this." And that kid comes from a super progressive household. His mother's a dear friend of mine. Every time his father sees me to this day, gives me a hug and tells me he's walking with me in this journey and supports me. And the F word you couldn't say in that household growing up was fake. And he was the one who said this. And then an older player who was more immersed in the culture, was playing higher levels, looked at the younger player and said, "We don't say that here. Give me 50 push-ups." And that became something my athletes adopted amongst themselves. And it was a way for them to kind of hold each other accountable in a way that wasn't just screaming and shouting and like Twitter. You know, it was like something tangible that they could actually do, an action to go, that habit came back. So they started doing push-ups, and before I knew it, people I didn't even know, people that didn't even train with me, were doing push-ups because hockey players are influencers in our culture, and they were just, you know, continuing to push it forward. The younger player, one of his teammates one night was on FaceTime with his girlfriend. And his girlfriend said, "Let's hang out." And he said, "No, I can't have practice." And she said, "That's so gay, you never want to hang out with me." And he looked at her and said, "Give me 50 push-ups right now or we're breaking up." And they both dropped down on FaceTime and did push-ups. And that's when I recognized that, number one, shifts in this culture can happen. We can shift this culture, we can evolve it. And it is possible. And number two, that I had the ability to help create them. Because I didn't realize before that I could. I should have came out then. A few things were the reasons why I didn't, including like an association blackballing me and different things. And I share it all with the players. But then I get into the types of shifts they can make, that we all have the ability to. And I like, even right now, one hockey player in Sudbury, Ontario in 2015 or 2016 told another hockey player to give me 50 push-ups. And that led to me sitting here right now speaking to you two. We never know the impact of our shifts and the ripple effect they will have. But they are possible. And it's not just for homophobia, it's racism, ableism, misogyny, abuse, you name it. Like, we have the ability to create shifts. And when we recognize that we can be a shift maker, that's when things start to evolve in society, in my opinion. You know what I mean? There's too much dividing right now, and there's not enough rallying. We need to rally people and show them their power and their worth, that they can be a part of the solution. So then I get into ways that they can create shifts. And then I ask them what they can do, and I let them talk. And the other thing I do with them is, especially in hockey stuff, is I talk about conformity. I can tell a hockey player anywhere I go. I can walk into any mall in Canada and tell you which kids play hockey. They dress the same, they talk the same, they walk the same. It's such an insular environment, they don't even realize it. They think they're being so different, and they're not. So now I'm able to do that and share how they can break those barriers of conformity, and then have them do it, because, like, I call it, like, there's an episode of Sex in the City, okay, like, random, where Carrie Bradshaw talks about secret single behavior. and what everyone's, and hers was like eating saltines with jam, reading a book in the kitchen in her underwear. And everyone had different versions of it. And I'm like, wait, hockey players have that. It's just things they enjoy, they won't tell their teammates. And it's wild to me because they all use analogies like their family or brothers or something like that. And yet, I'm speaking specifically in men's hockey because I understand that culture deeper than I do women's. And it's a lot more broken. But they all have these things. So I'm like, you say you're a family. These are your brothers. I said, well, and all you can talk about is women, video games, partying, and sports and music, if it's like popular music within the culture. Like, you have more depth and substance than that. My family knows more about me than that. I'm sure yours does. So why aren't we sharing it? So I want to break those layers of conformity by having them share things. And it's pretty fascinating to see their answers. And hopefully by doing that, they'll recognize that if we break down those barriers, if we recognize we're all different, that normal doesn't exist, we're all a bunch of weirdos, we'll be less likely to judge others for their weirdness, as opposed to being so critical if you can't conform to this rigid culture. So that's basically it.
It's interesting that you bring up, because that's a perfect segue to the next thing that we actually wanted to ask you. One of the podcasts that you were on recently, you were mentioning personalities in hockey and how they kind of, if they don't align with the hockey culture, they almost kind of get pushed out of the locker room. But on our interview 2 weeks ago, we had Rachel Lanis on, and she's the new head coach, strength and conditioning for the San Jose Barracuda. And she was talking a lot in perspective for the women's side of hockey, where because they don't get as much airtime, they kind of have to look at what they can control, is showing more of their personality, getting the stories out there so people can kind of get more interested in the women's side of sports. But for me and Nessa, the personality is kind of where you grow the sport. You get people who might not necessarily be into hockey. Like, you can kind of look at like other sports. Like, recently I saw that the Warriors went out to Korea. Now they've got like the K-pop.
Japan.
Oh, was it Japan?
Yeah, they went to Tokyo.
Okay, so they were out in Japan, but one of the fans they had was part of the biggest K-pop group. So naturally, if he's posting on his social media that like, oh look, cool, like here's Seth Curry, now you've amplified the reach of basketball to a demographic of folks. I mean, I don't necessarily follow basketball, but in that moment when I saw that, I'm like, imagine if hockey did this. If we could just get out of, oh, we just got to get pucks deep, we just got to play a full 60 minutes, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, can you kind of talk on that subject of personalities and how they kind of are ripples in this hockey culture that we're desperately trying to get out of?
I think there's a vocal minority of fans that say stick to sports. I also think those same people, if told stories that are captivating and engaging and actually saw personality from players, would love it. The problem is we don't see any. And I think it's part of the reason why hockey makes less money than the other so-called Big Four, right? Like, if you look at a salary of a bench NBA player, not even like a rotation player that's coming off your bench makes more than, potentially Connor McDavid. A fringe starter definitely does. And that's wild. but it's just reality. Like the Connor McDavids of basketball are making $30 to $50 million a year. And to me, it's because we don't show enough. I think on the women's side, what they do, and I find they still adhere to the norms. I don't think they're showing as much personality as they could. I genuinely don't. I think they're programmed the same way in a sense. But I think what they do show is, I think there's a lot of stereotypes within the culture that if you're women playing sports, that you are A, masculinized, and B, potentially queer, even if you're not. So I think you're starting to see intentional feminization of women in sport. You'll see players on the ice wearing, and maybe it's also because they just like it. But, I've noticed in the past few years, especially, see more women wearing like makeup during games, which I find like kind of like, and good for them. But I just hope it's like we're not putting stereotypes as a society, which I know we are, but that like if they don't do this, they're presumed to be, someone they're not. But I think both sides of the sport can amplify messaging and show fun. Like, I was a hockey boy. I hung out with hockey boys my whole life. They have big personalities. And we need to show it. We need to engage them. We need to have fun. Trevor Zegras is great for hockey. You know what I mean? I don't watch the Ducks really ever, and still know Trevor Zegras. And I think there's more in him that he's still holding back a little bit. I think he could push it further. I think, we are consistently told to refrain from, pushing our individuality, because it sort of gives the illusion that we're not playing for the logo on the front. But I think it's the opposite. I think by suppressing who we are and adhering to a norm, I think and forcing people to adhere to a norm is selfish. I think I think that's playing for ourselves, as opposed to embracing people for who they are and allowing them to be individuals, and allowing those who are larger than life to shine through. You know what I mean? I think that's good for the game. I think it's good for branding. I think it's good for marketing. I also think it's good for people. Like, if I can show who I am and I'm embraced by my teammates, well, now they're playing for each individual in the room, right? Which comprises the people that make up the crest on the front, as opposed to forcing them to be silent, head down, pucks in deep, terrible interviews. And then we're actually playing for one or two people's idea of what a team should be. To me, that's selfish. If we start embracing individuality, we will break those barriers of conformity. We will allow people to be themselves. We will see hockey become more entertaining. We will see better storytelling. We will see more fun, engaging stories about players. We will have non-traditional fans start to pick up the sport. We will have fun with it. Like, hockey, it's entertainment. Like, this is literally entertainment. It's no different than Lizzo, and I'm picking two names because I just saw on her Instagram, Lizzo and Harry Styles. Like, you know what I mean? Like what's the difference? It's all entertainment. The fact of the matter is, it needs to be fun. And the on-ice play has to be good, there's no doubt. Like, that's a massive component. Nobody's dismissing that. But the on-ice play can be good, and we can also have personalities in the sport away from it. And especially in today's social media era, like, where we have the ability to reach the entire planet. It's time to do it.
I feel like the folks don't want personality in sport because the ones that do are so loud. They just you get onto socials and then you feel like, why do I like this sport so much?
Yeah, I think and I think that comes with fear, right? Like everyone's been programmed. Everyone's a product of their own environment. And if you've been told your whole life that, puck's in deep, you don't speak up, you don't do this, you don't show anything, well, then that's all you know. And without the ability to critically think or step out of that environment for a minute and say, wait, look at this sport, look at that sport, look at, people having fun, like, then step back in and go, oh, this could be even better. Nobody's trying to change the sport. We just want it to be even better. And I think there's fear of unknown. I think there's fear of unknown in everything. I think that's why society is as messed up as it is right now. Everyone's afraid of what they don't understand. And they lash out against it. But that is literally just because we don't have the ability to critically analyze.
It's interesting because the Sharks have a prospect, I guess, who kind of did go against the norm in that sense, where, with all the problems within hockey culture with the sexual assault allegations and stuff in every level of the sport. I don't remember his story exactly, but he did speak up against one of the coaches. And
are you familiar with Straussman?
With who, sorry?
Straussman.
He was he was on the Michigan team, and
college.
he was the goaltender for the USA Olympics, but he had forwent his senior year to go play in the Swedish league, and then it came out, I think, sometime earlier this year that I think it was the head coach was under investigation for mistreatment of staff and players, how he was trying to get around COVID-19 protocols, how he, I forgot a few other things, but essentially...
Wasn't there some comments about marginalized groups too? Maybe I'm making that up. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember that.
Okay,
yeah, but essentially there's speculation that was because Straussman has, I think it is confirmed that he did try to speak up about it, but it's not confirmed that that was the reason why he forwent his last year and then went to
because he was supposedly the captain of the team at the time.
Yeah.
And he was just, yeah.
It's interesting too when you see people like that because they have more of an ability to speak up. Is he drafted by San Jose?
No, he went undrafted.
He got signed this past year. Yeah.
Understood. So, signing and having it's wild though. You think about how many players were on that team that were drafted and elite players. And it's like, where are you? And it's like, head down, shut up, keep moving my game forward. And I have a hard time being critical of players in situations like that because they are a product of that environment and it's been programmed in them since they were 6 years old. What's said in the room stays in the room. You shut up, you do what you're told, and you just, you listen or your career's in jeopardy. And it's literally that extreme. So for me, if you speak out against something like that, you've just lost. You could potentially lose everything you've worked for your whole life, your whole identity, and that becomes alarming and scary. And how are we expecting it for? And people say, well, just do it. And it's like, okay, you get programmed from the age of 6. For 15 or so years of your life, every single day to think that something bad will happen to you if you do X, Y, or Z. You know what I mean? How do we expect them to? We need to shift everything in terms of that. How we screen coaches, how we screen management, how the systems we have in place to protect players from this type of stuff is critical.
On that note, we know you've been very vocal in following the development of Hockey Canada.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I don't know what
It's
I'm
not like
talking
it's
about
everywhere.
either.
What happened there?
Bare minimum, fortunately, the board has finally decided to step down after far too long.
Decided.
And we've started seeing the multiple sponsors that have come out to pull funding from men's hockey. So what's, from your perspective, what do you see as the next steps for change?
Well, it's funny. I wrote an article in the Globe and Mail in July. And I literally broke down hockey culture and then a path forward. And I sat there and I'm like, this like, it's a really expensive consulting fee I'm giving them for free if they just read this. And then they did nothing. like I'm like, all you had to do, we know the issues in this culture. I'm tired of committees. I'm tired of talk. I'm tired of action plans with no substance or depth. Like, we need to put people in place to act. We need to put people in place to radically reform. We need to put people in place to change the way we screen coaches, screen management, screen board members from the smallest minor hockey association all the way up to Hockey Canada. We need to change the priorities of the sport, and it should be about recruiting and retaining kids to play as opposed to gold medals. Medals come. They're going to come regardless. The top players are going to be great, and we're going to develop them. But when your numbers are dropping annually, you're not doing a good job. When you have $150 million in the bank and people can't afford to play the sport, you're not doing a good job. And $150 million in the bank as a not-for-profit. When, people are uncomfortable because your culture is so toxic, you're not doing a good job. Hockey should be an empowerment tool. I had a trans boy come to me a few years ago who was self-harming and dealing with a lot of body dysmorphia and different issues. And he said to me that he found bodybuilding and weightlifting, and that became his outlet and his release to feel good. And I said to myself, fuck. Am I allowed to swear?
You're good.
I can?
You're
Is there
good.
swearing on this show? Because I usually swear a lot, so.
We don't have ratings, so.
Okay. Well, fuck. That should be fucking hockey in this country. Hockey has more influence in Canada than any other sport, and than any other space in the country. Hockey is Canadiana. It influences our culture to our country and the culture so much. And I'm like, shouldn't it be an empowerment tool for people who aren't, kids that aren't feeling good? Shouldn't that be the space they go to 2 hours a night and feel good all of a sudden, and everything they're dealing with in their life goes away and they can just be on the ice and love it the way some people do? And yet it's an oppressive place. So, yeah, there's sexual assault. There's racism, there's homophobia, there's misogyny, there's ableism, there's so many different things in this culture that, these people have known exist. I sat down with Tom Rennie a year ago, I said, Tom, maybe your programming was revolutionary in its day, but it's bad. I said, your education's terrible. You don't humanize any issues. You don't do, it's not good to shift the culture. And he said, okay, Brock, well, send me an email and tell me how great our chat was. And I said, what? This is the head of Hockey Canada telling me to send him an email telling him how great of a chat we had. Why? Why do you want that? They're more concerned about covering their asses than actually fixing it. And that's why they're all out of work right now. But the same can be said about local minors, every provincial body, USA Hockey, you name it. It's similar across the board, and it's because we're all a product of a culture, of an environment, and we've been shaped by the people who came before us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's time for change. We need to follow a roadmap forward. We need to evolve our processes. Like when I heard the nomination committee say, one person said on the news that they're going to use the same protocols to pick the next Hockey Canada board.
What's the point?
Well, yeah, you're asking for the same stuff. The chair of the nomination committee is the former chair of the board of directors. Like, really? This is who's picking our future? The people that were the past? It's not it. And they're shooting themselves in the foot, and they're going to be in the same situation a year from now. And I'm going to call on every sponsor between now and then to, not give them money until they actually show change.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of them. I'm tired of their lack of action and care and their arrogance through all of this. I'm just fed up.
Yeah, I'm not even Canadian, and I'm like, what the hell?
Because even at the beginning, I've been probably one of the most critical people. I'm in the media almost daily about it. I never called for anyone's heads. I never called for any, changes in terms of who was there. I called for action. Okay, reform. Change your screening processes. Start looking at different people to be involved. Humanize all these issues because they're not humanized for these people, and there's reasons for that. Hockey culture is so insular. It's 90-something% white, majority are middle to upper class, and also everyone on the men's side is presumed to be straight. So you can say or do whatever you want without any recourse or ramification for your words, behaviors, or actions. So start humanizing issues so they recognize it, because I think most of them are really good people and will rally. They just don't realize that these things are things they need to rally around. Then after you've humanized issues, they will be more receptive to education. Reform, depending on the situation, for infractions, like suspensions don't work. We just suspend people. They use racist, homophobic, they don't even do this for sexist language, but racist language, homophobic language, etc. It's a 5-game suspension. No reform, no anything. It's have you ever watched the documentary The 13th?
No.
Oh, it's really good. You should watch it. It's about the prison system in America and how it's basically A, it's modern day slavery, and B, it's also you're put in there, you're making products it's a for-profit business, you're making products for them, you're not being reformed while you're in there, and then there's a reincarceration rate of over, I think it's 70%. Meanwhile, they show Denmark where they reform you in prison. I know it's a socialist country and people go, well, socialism, blah, blah, blah. But you can take some aspects, even if people who are pro-capitalism, anti-socialism, whatever, it's your choice, but you can take aspects of it still and recognize good things and go, oh, You mean to tell me they're giving people education and therapy and different tools to get feeling good and being a productive member of society in their prison system, and they have a reincarceration rate of less than 1%? So it sounds like we would be in a better position for the economy, capitalism, for people, socialism, for like everybody. And the same can be true in sports culture. If we had a culture where instead of just penalizing people, we reform them, depending on the severity of the act. Don't get me wrong. I think there's some heinous things that occur that don't, you know, are unsalvageable, and people don't deserve second opportunities. But for the, you know, lesser infractions, if we can reform people and make them productive members of this culture, well, that's going to make it a better place for everybody. So to me, that is the blueprint. And then looking at gaps and also, you know, like barriers to entry and why it is the way it is. And that can be done. It can totally be done. It's not complicated. And I think that's the start of, you know, the shift. And then from there, issues within it will arise, no doubt. Like, society's continuing to evolve, so will that. But it's a blueprint and a beginning. And I mean, like, my God, when are they going to do something?
It's also frustrating to see from, even just from a fan perspective, where I have no affiliations with hockey other than I watch it and I enjoy it, right? But I mean, it's, to me, it's common sense to be able to change these things for the better, but money and powers is loud.
It's a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Money and power is a hell of a drug. I think people are far more concerned with that than they are with actual shifting of culture, and I think that is very concerning to me. You know, I used to say that at local minor hockey levels, there's a lot of people I found that were in it for the power and control versus the good of children. And whether they didn't have power and control in their personal lives, in their professions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I don't know. But I found that to be the case a lot of the time, that people were in it for the wrong reasons. Not everyone, but like a select few, and it's always sad to see.
All right, we're gonna
Well,
shift
on a positive note, yeah.
yeah, we're gonna shift the mood here. Despite all of the negativity surrounding hockey and all these allegations and stuff, we saw you tweet that you're starting to enjoy the sport again. You know, you posted about going to a Leafs game and like having fun, and we kind of just wanted to ask you about your experience and like what's brought you to this point after so many years.
The idea that the culture may evolve. Hockey is my first love. Hockey is, you know, I sacrificed truly 33 years of fully being myself for the sport, and I never felt like it loved me back. And seeing it slowly evolve makes me, well, it's been kind of, there's been some, like, I feel a little vindicated and validated, and any other V word you can think of. Because it's like, yeah, I've been talking about this for 6-7 years, and people would like literally attack me. I would get death threats about it, and now the country is catching up, and the culture is catching up to like what I've been saying. And there's other people that have been saying it, but I'm just talking about my personal experiences. So it's been kind of nice in that sense, but it's also been it was like so daunting for so long, and I felt so isolated and alone. I think slowly I started to do things like, I don't want to be talking about these things. Like, genuinely, um, I didn't sign up for this. It sort of just happened, and then it was like, oh, great, this is my role now. But it was like, I never signed up for it. It wasn't like I was like, yeah, I'm going to be activist guy, and I'm going to change this culture. No, I just want to have fun and, love the sport I love. And then I slowly fell into this. Well, not very slowly. But I, as more people have gone vocal, as started to work to build queer community within it, as as I started seeing this change with like sponsors and everything pulling out and forcing a shift at Hockey Canada, it started to make me feel like, okay, it's not for nothing. And then beyond that, I stopped caring what anyone thinks. I couldn't give two shits what anyone thinks about me, like literally anybody. And I love hockey, so why wouldn't I go and enjoy hockey? I watched a hockey game on television yesterday for the first time in I don't know how long. Like, I'm have a hockey game on in the background right now, which is wild. It's very uncommon for me. I also, one of my ex-athletes, and I loved working with my athletes because it was more individualized and I got to choose the people I worked with. And I left that to pursue this work. So it was like, that took me out of it a bit, and I experienced a lot of oppression doing that at times. But one of my ex-athletes sucked me into working with him again. He's in the OHL, and he's a really good hockey player. And he was like, I started helping him last season, mid-season, and analyzing his game tapes with him and different things. And he's like, well, you have to train me again. I was like, ugh, fine. So, I had little time off, and the time I had off was spent training him for hockey, and he would live at my house, or I'd go back up to Sudbury and visit my family and train him. And I just kind of fell in love with it again. And I missed it. I realized that I don't need a traditional relationship with it to love it. And if I can recognize that, it'll love me back in a way that's good for me.
I have to ask, does this mean you're a Leafs fan now?
Oh, God, no. No, I still root for chaos. I want everyone to lose. And
that is their name.
You should become a Sharks fan then, because we're really good
Same
about
difference.
losing right now.
No, but it's you're okay with it because you're in a rebuild. So it's like accepted, sort of.
This
whereas
season only.
Yeah, whereas I want teams that are supposed to win games to lose. And I want
Is that
fan
why
bases.
You watch?
No, I watch to analyze the game. I like analyzing tactical stuff, skill development stuff, what players do and why, and what they should do instead. But the chaos of it all brings me joy. I want to see, no, genuinely, like I want to see Vancouver Canucks fans cry. I don't hate anyone on Vancouver. I genuinely don't. I Pedersen and these people seem great. I love Cami Granato. I think she's wonderful for the sport. I want them to succeed, but I kind of love when Vancouver Canucks fans have meltdowns. like I think one time I teased Montreal Canadiens fans, and I had media members attacking me. Like they're just next level, and I might get more into that in the next little bit, just because like I like being a bit of a troll with fans. I don't know. I just like, let's have some fun.
Yeah,
You know
people
what I
take it
mean?
too seriously.
Well, that's why I want to troll them. I want to troll the ones that take it so serious. Those are the teams I want to fail because it's fun for me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's more what I'm focused on now in terms of enjoying it and just getting along. But no, I'll never be a Leafs fan. I laugh at people who are.
My
Like,
roommate is a Leafs fan.
yeah, it's like why bother? You know what's going to happen. You know, you're a masochist. Like, genuinely, you're a masochist who is okay with knowing, hey, I'm going to um, lose in the first round and be heartbroken every single season. Like, I don't know, if you're a masochist giver, I guess. Like, I'm not that way. I would rather make fun of other people than myself. So I went to a game because I had a free ticket. Like, literally.
Wow,
It's
a free ticket to a Leafs game. That's crazy.
Yeah, I actually had last year I had, I think, 4 free boxes to Leafs games.
Wow.
I know, but I didn't care to watch hockey last year, so I was usually turned around talking and drinking. I spent more time drinking alcohol and engaging, like it was like a pre-drink before going out, more so than it was a about the hockey. So actually, one of them, do you know Maha on Twitter?
No.
Okay, you gotta find Maha on Twitter. She's great. We're friends, but we reenacted the Kodak Black thing in
Oh
one of the
no.
boxes.
No, now I know because you retweeted her a couple of times.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so we reenacted. Yeah, we did the Kodak Black. She was Kodak Black, and I was uh,
Of course.
hilarious. Um, it was so, but it was fun, and like that's, I don't know. Hockey should be fun.
You recently just had a birthday, yeah? How was
Yeah,
that?
another one.
How was that for you? How do you feel about
Um,
birthdays?
Oh, I think I'm like getting better with age. So I love me a good birthday. I think, if NHL players started following my skincare routine, they'd be better off for it. Um, but I love a good birthday because I'm just getting better and better. um, and I'm here to make hockey handsome. But But yeah, I just had a birthday. So very embarrassing story. Do you want me to spill the tea?
Yeah,
Oh, we love
always.
stories.
Okay, so I like a really disgusting drink.
Okay.
I used to drink whiskey with Diet Coke or Pepsi. And I was dating somebody who drank gin. And it was a Pride one year, and this is before I was dating Matt, this is a long time ago. A Pride one year, I ran out of whiskey and he ran out of mix, so we just mixed the Diet Coke with the gin,
Hmm.
and then I started drinking it. Like, it became a consistent drink of mine. Um, and for my birthday, we had a party. Matt made a gin and Diet Coke station. Okay, so he had a station called it the Brock. If anyone wanted some, it was there. I didn't know that he had pre-mixed the gin and Diet Coke,
Oh no.
and it was a very stiff mix.
Did you
Um,
you got wasted?
I
So
was pouring
wasted.
gin into my glass and then mixing it. Um, yeah, I had 3 drinks and drank a bottle of gin without knowing. And I had a very busy day the next day, and I was like, I'm just gonna have a casual night. I'm not gonna like it's gonna be just vibes, and I'm gonna have some fun, a few casual drinks. People are over, then we're going out, and I was wasted, unintentionally wasted. Yeah, it was a very messy night, a terrible next day. It's the only thing that I'm struggling with getting older is the hangover was awful. Um, but like I went to the bathroom and I was on my third drink and I went to put my glass down on the sink and I missed the sink and it shattered everywhere.
Oh no.
And I was trying to convince Matt and one of our friends that it was only my third drink, and they're like, "Sure, bro, okay." And I'm like, "No, really." And even Maha's like, "You're not on your third drink," and I'm like, "I am." Like, you're all gaslighting me. This is my third drink. It was. I just didn't find out until the next night that I was drinking like a bottle of gin per drink, basically. It was awful. I don't know how I didn't taste it on the first one. I think I was just so excited to have a party. So I hate attention, you know. So it was all on me and I was living. And yeah, I didn't even notice.
Sounds like a great time.
Yeah.
Maybe like 10 years ago, not these days.
Yeah, I would say it led to some interesting conversations. I wasn't the best version of myself that night. I wasn't bad, but I could have been better.
It's
Could have
okay.
been more fabulous.
I think I was rocking it pretty good, and then I ended up at an after party. But I came home first, and for some reason I changed and I put a zip-up jacket with the hood on, sweatpants, big sunglasses, like huge sunglasses, a hat, and socks with slides. And I got into an Uber, and I was just like, the guy must have thought I was crazy. I was like, go. And that's how I sat in an after party dressed
In your
like
PJs,
that.
basically.
In sweatpants with huge sunglasses, like I'm a Kardashian. And it was just too much.
I'm not as big of a Drag Race fan as you. I like drag, but I only started following the show, was it 2 seasons ago when they had Gottmik on?
Yeah.
And since then, currently they started a new season in the Philippines, and I'm half Filipino, so of course I was just like, stop everything. What? So watch the whole season. About halfway through, every now and then me and my mom will do lunch together, and I felt like this would be a good bonding experience. Like, I grew up in a typical Asian household where you kind of like don't talk about yourself. Queer talk wasn't really in my household, even though I grew up in a pretty, liberal environment around me, but I never really knew my family's perspective on that. And I mean, I'm out to my family now, but even still, it's not talked about. It's just like, okay, it's there. But I felt like in that moment, this might be a good opportunity to not only share something with my mom, but also kind of bridge that like conversation. And it was really, it really touched me in a way that certain episodes, I actually didn't understand the context, because they do, if it's a certain theme, I don't know enough about that side of Filipino culture to understand the significance. But she was there and she was getting into the show and she would tell me what they're referencing. And then she started
That's
getting
cool.
into it, like she'd be like, oh, this outfit's not good. Or she'd be like, oh, like during like the the when they're singing for their life.
Yeah, the lip sync.
She would comment that like, oh, this person didn't move enough. And so I guess I was just bringing that up to kind of share not only my experience, but to also, if you've happened to catch any of episodes of the Drag Race in the Philippines.
I haven't watched it yet. There's kind of an oversaturation right now
Yeah.
of Drag Race where, and it's great. I think it's a good thing because it means queer people are making money. You know, like here's the reality: drag queens make like $100 a night, if that, plus tips. As local queens, and there's it sucks because you know our like to see queer people grinding away and not making money. So I love the fact that there's so many different franchises. It's a lot to try and keep up to all of them. There's so many that I haven't gone around to all of them, and so I've seen bits and pieces. I've seen some big clips, like when that judge really went off on one of the queens and made her cry and was like too harsh, probably. And I really like Jiggly Caliente, so I like that Jiggly's there, right? Isn't Jiggly a judge on the Philippines? Yeah. So I like Jiggly. But I think that's a really important aspect of the show is it can be a bonding experience for queer folks. You know, I've had people like come at me pretty hard about talking about Drag Race on social media. Like I've had people like attack me saying, like basically lashing out to me because they don't like RuPaul. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not tweeting about RuPaul. Like I'm tweeting about a show, and I'm tweeting about queer people. You know, BIPOC queer people, non-binary people, trans people, gay people, who are now at a place where they're going to have careers as opposed to making $75 at a bar. Like, yeah, I'm going to keep tweeting about them because, like, I'm looking at the big picture and what this is about. I could care less who hosts the show. I care about queer people having the means and the ability to thrive. So, and I understand the emotion of some of the things that have been said and done by the show and different things in the past and how toxic the fandom can be. But for me, it's about, I want to see as many queer people thrive in society as possible because it just makes the world a better place for all queer people. So, yeah, I'm going to keep talking about Drag Race, and I'm going to keep watching Drag Race as much as I can. It becomes a lot at times. But, you know, I don't know. It was the first of its kind. It was revolutionary for the queer community. I miss the old Drag Race in the sense that it felt more authentic. Like if you go back and watch old, like first 6 or so seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race in the US, there was an unfiltered version of these queens that was just like, I don't know, it made great TV, but now they're so concerned about the fandom and being liked and booking fees and everything else that we're losing that aspect, and I don't think it's as authentic, especially knowing a fair amount of the queens. But I'll never stop supporting queer people succeeding, period. Like, it matters so much, and we need more of it. I want to see more diverse casting on Drag Race. We've had one cis woman cast. We're finally seeing, like, Gottmik was the first trans man. We need more. We're getting more open trans representation in terms of trans women. Like, what was there, 6 trans women on, or non-binary folks on season 14 in the U.S. I want to see more of that. I want to see more marginalized groups represented within the community. And just continuing to evolve it. Like, it'd be cool to see drag kings. It'd be cool to see, different forms of drag as opposed to, like, pretty, beautiful, glamorous drag, which is great. I love it. But, like, I want to see more camp. I want to see more, I hate, like, when they say, like, a spooky queen or a goth queen. Like, just more, like, different forms of artistry celebrated. And I really think they need to evolve it. I loved All-Star 7 where nobody went home. I want to see more of that, especially, like I said, these people make $100 a night, and now they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on their outfits to go on a show and get eliminated because they had one bad episode. Keep them all there. Let's get to know them. And you know what I mean? Like, and then the winners are still going to win. It gives you more storylines to play with. It's better television. It's more engaging. I don't know. I'll always root for drag. I'll always root for queer people. And when a queer person succeeds, we all succeed. So I'll never stop rooting for them.
I love it. Besides Drag Race, is there any other, like, queer shows that you're watching or are looking forward to watch?
Oh gosh. We're Here. I watch a little bit of that. I mean, Queer Eye. Some of these shows I find tough because it feels like they're more focused on the external as opposed to the internal. I want to see more of the heart of people if we're going to go into that. I need to watch Heartbreakers. What's the show with Zendaya?
Euphoria?
Euphoria.
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you. I love Euphoria, and it has enough queer content for me. What's the Netflix one where they're in high school?
Sex education?
Sex Education. I love Sex Education. See, I'm getting old. I can't remember. I remember names as much as RuPaul, apparently. She can never remember a queen's name. It's hilarious. So, I don't know. I watch a fair amount of queer shows.
I have a recommendation.
Yeah, which one?
A League of Their Own.
Oh, I've already watched it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah,
Loved it.
So there's another one. Yeah, it's such a brilliant show. I love the way they're telling. I was scared to watch it. It's a movie. Growing up was my favorite movie.
Yeah, it's my girlfriend's favorite.
So I was terrified to watch it. That sometimes you see things get butchered when they're redone.
Yep.
But I appreciate the way they told stories and shared different lived experiences that weren't touched on in the movie while keeping some of the same sentiment. You know what I mean? Like, you can keep that and show the reality that a lot of these women were closeted queer people, and that black women weren't allowed to play.
Yeah.
Like, we can tell those stories and also share the good of the game and how they had an opportunity to finally show what they could do on a national level. So I think there's, a way. I think the storytelling there is like really good because it gives a full or a better comprehension of the whole um, time. So I love that. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones that I watch. I'm gonna get off this and like go look at every show I've watched in the last like year and be like, oh, that one and this one. And I prefer some of the older stuff. I prefer things that like give us a comprehension of our history.
Did you watch
Because
Pose?
what's that?
Did you watch Pose?
Of course. Um, I love Pose. I love. Now I can't think of it. The documentary on of the ball culture. Paris is Burning. I love The Normal Heart, and the band played on the Laramie Project. Things like that. That Milk. I want to learn more about queerness and our history and where we come from and what has led us to be where we are today, because as queer people, like, we don't, as an Irish Canadian guy, I learn about my background, right? As we learn about the people we come from, but we don't learn about our queerness because our families aren't necessarily. So we don't get it as in-depth of a comprehension of that side of us and where we come from and the people who came before us that paved the way. You know what I mean? Like even before Stonewall, and groups that came before Stonewall, even, after Stonewall, what happened, and how, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera started like a foundation to help people who were incarcerated get back on their feet, and help queer people who were homeless. And we don't learn about these things. I want to learn more about that. I want to learn about us as a people in our past so that we can navigate today and tomorrow.
I wonder if we can put together like a Google Docs of recommendations for people.
I'm thinking about starting a TikTok where I just share who people are. I was going to start in sports. Like, here's 50 queer people in sports throughout time. And then prominent people. Like a lot of people don't know is, I'm going to butcher the name. Is it Alan Turing? He decoded all the stuff with the Nazis for the British government and figured out their plans. He decoded their codes through like whatever they were using, and then they figured out he was gay. And after he basically won the war by decoding all their messaging, they jailed him for being gay. Or people don't realize that after World War II, that queer people were left in concentration camps. And then, we ended up being jailed. And that's where the pink upside down triangle comes from. And then the black triangle, that was for gay men, and the black triangle was for the rest of the queer community. We need to start sharing more of that and learning more of that. I mean, you're right, like something like that. But I want to do something with athletes and then also like prominent figures from the past. So like simple, digestible, 30 seconds, and then give people more information that they can go and learn. I hate editing TikToks. I don't want to do it, so that's why I haven't done this. I just don't want to edit.
I don't know anything about TikTok, so I don't know.
I need to hire
I love editing.
I'll hire you to edit.
Yeah.
And I'll make them.
I will sacrifice my avoidance of TikTok for you.
You don't even have to go on TikTok. You can just
Oh, good.
edit
Oh,
off
thank
TikTok
God.
and I'll post them.
Hit me up whenever you
We'll talk.
whenever you want to
We'll
start
talk.
that. Cool. Go
Jay
ahead,
has been
Lisa.
wanting to ask you about your dog Iris because they're a big dog person.
To pretext that, this is technically a fan question from one of my good friends.
Oh,
Really wants to
Iris?
know more about Iris.
Come here. Should she make an appearance?
yes.
Come here, sweetheart.
She'll be the first pet appearance on our
You want
show.
to come up? Okay. Do you want to see how I put her to bed?
Yes. Oh my God, does
You
she
can
have
make-
PJs?
No,
Oh.
no, I'm not that person. But this is us going to bed every night. Okay, ready?
She's so snuggly.
And then we talk about our day. We do this every single night. And she's such a sweet girl. You want to say hi? Look right here.
Iris.
So what would you like to know about Iris?
What kind of dog is she? Is that
Over there.
the breed that you've always wanted?
So here's
What's the story behind her name?
here's the reality with Iris. Matt had been bugging me forever to get a dog. And I said no. I'm on the road, like pre-COVID, I was on the road for 44 straight weeks. Like, I travel and speak, and I'm touring and doing all this stuff. Like, no, I'm not raising a dog on the road. And Matt works, like, 10 hours a day at least. Like, he's gone all day. It's not a life for a dog. And, like, condo in Toronto. And then he kept bugging me, and then COVID hit. I'm like, well, I'm home now. So I was like, fine. And he's like, I'm home too, and I'll help you raise it. And then 2 months in, he went back to work. So then I was stuck raising a dog. And I knew, so I had very specific instructions. I'm highly allergic to animals. So it had to be something that was hypoallergenic. And Iris is 75% poodle, 25% golden retriever. So she's a golden doodle, but she's more poodle. So it's great for me. Like, I can breathe, which is nice. Breathing is good. I was furious at the beginning. So one day our old place was smaller than where we are now, and our living room became my studio during COVID, where I was filming everything. And I was on live television, and Iris was, this is kind of gross, but Iris was behind the camera. She was on the other side, so it was fine. But she decides, she was just a little puppy. She decides to poop. And I'm like, ugh. And I have to keep smiling. I'm on TV. Except then she starts eating it.
No.
She was like 3 months old, and she's eating her shit while I'm talking on live television. And I'm sitting there boiling, like fuming inside, and I can't tell her to stop. I can't do anything. And she's looking me in the eyes going, and I was ready to kill. Matt got home from work, and I started yelling. I'm like, she's gone or I'm gone. I can't take this. And I was like losing it. But reality is, she's the best thing that ever happened to me. I went from running. I'm a hyperactive person. I have to do a lot. I work out twice a day. I used to run 3 businesses, hockey businesses, and then started speaking while I was running 3 hockey businesses, and then finally shut them down because I was just on the road so much, and I needed to be on the road. I need to be working nonstop, plus in the gym, plus this, plus that, and it all got shut down. And I try and calm my mind and everything. I meditate twice a day. I'm very, I journal. I do everything I have to do for my well-being and mental health. But I need to go. And I was ripped away, and I didn't know how to survive that. I would say she got me through it. I would just walk through Toronto crying, walking Iris. Like, I was just so emotional in the midst of the pandemic, and she would just look up and smile at me, and it would make it all better. And she's become my best friend. We do everything together, and I'm so lucky. It was, things happen for you, not to you, and this happened for me. We run together. She's my running partner. We cuddle. We're just together nonstop. And it's like the weird part of traveling again is like I gotta go a little bit of time without my baby, and not Matt, Iris. I'm like, no, you can stay. I just want to take her. But no, I'm truly lucky to have her. The name came from Matt and I were talking about like old Hollywood names. So, like it was either Iris or Rose, and when we saw her, she was more of an Iris. If we have a boy, I want to name him. If we have a boy, if we got another dog, that's a boy. I want to name him Montgomery after like Montgomery Cliff, and like have Iris and Montgomery, and like I don't know, I just like love old Hollywood, and there's something romantic about it that doesn't seem to exist in our culture anymore.
I actually just went on a tour to Paramount Studios
Cool.
a couple months ago, and so I learned a lot about old Hollywood.
There's a lot of like fucked up stuff that came with it, definitely.
Oh, for sure.
From the drugs they were like to keep kids awake to do movies and stuff, and and everything else. But there's like something romantic about it too that just I don't know. I don't know if it's social media or what it is, but it was like mysterious and people cared less. Like have you ever watched Feud?
No.
It was like Joan Crawford and Betty Davis, and like their feud, but like they were kind of like frenemies, and like watching that and seeing different things, and Liza and Judy, and like learning all of that. Like it's just, I don't know, there's something about it. I really like it. So yeah, naming her and I really like Iris Apfeld. I don't know, you gotta check her out if you don't know her. She's really cool. She's like this 90-something-year-old fashionista. And Matt really liked the name Iris, and he says he came up with it. I think I did. We'll never agree.
Great minds.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm going to say to him. But we're both very competitive, so it's like we're both gonna like continue to say no, it was mine.
Zombie apocalypse. Are you surviving it?
I've survived this much bullshit. Why wouldn't I survive that?
Good point.
Our
Weapon of
resilience
choice.
has prepared us for this moment. Well, I don't know anything. I don't think one's coming.
I don't think one's coming either. I think, nonetheless, yeah, I'm not going away, so survive it.
Would you have a weapon of choice in case you need it?
I wouldn't need one. I would just outsmart everyone. Like, if I can't outsmart a zombie...
I mean, they're getting smarter.
No.
The movies are making them smarter,
Well,
so...
if I can't outsmart a zombie, I don't deserve to live.
The one that outsass a zombie.
Well, I don't think that's hard either. But yeah, definitely I would survive. I would outsmart the zombie, and if I can't, then I quit. Just take me.
Because it's a little embarrassing if you can't outsmart a zombie, it's dead.
Like, literally, it's like The Walking Dead, and they make weird noises, and they don't seem like they have the capability to critically think. So if I can't outsmart it and find a way to stay alive and, outthink a dead person, do I really deserve to live? I'll let your audience be the judge of that, but I'm going to go with a hard no.
Okay. Coming to a conclusion on the episode, do you have any shout outs you'd like to throw out into the world?
Oh, goodness. Shout out Iris. I want to shout out everyone that did that Hockey Pride. I have intentions of doing another one. I'm working on something pretty large scale right now that once it's complete, I'm hoping will roll into that. And, but shout out everyone who shared their story, because, there's a lot of us, and the more of us who are visible and the more people see that we exist in this space, the better it's going to be for everyone. So I want to shout out everyone who did that, because it matters a lot.
On that topic, the last time we spoke, you were the one interviewing us.
I know! That was fun. Do you know that got, I think somebody did the calculation, it was 4.6 million impressions and over 1 million engagements on Twitter alone.
Wow.
Yeah, it was 120 people. And it got that much. And it was organically put out. Like, I was putting out 3 a day. It was like, oh, the next one's up. Like, throw it on. Like, and it got that much. It's pretty cool. And it just shows our strength and power and ability to come together to create greatness. And I think, I think it opened some eyes to some people in this space.
It definitely opened my eyes.
Cool.
I didn't know there were any other queer fans, really. I wasn't really in the Twitter universe at the time,
but it builds community, and that's the goal. And if we can build community and then learn, like, we've all experienced different forms of oppression or struggle from our queerness, and if we can help each other and guide each other and use and support each other and share tools that have helped us overcome it to feel good, we're going to be better off, and that's what community's for. And if we can build that here, like, that's what it's all about. So shout out to everyone who did that, because your voice matters, and that was probably one of the first moments where I started to feel happy in hockey again.
yeah.
I mean, it does really come full circle, because that's how I met Nessa, because I watched her interview, and in a lot of ways it's why the both of us started this, because it kind of put a fire under us, and we were constantly thinking about, I mean, we would see something, we'd get frustrated, but then we felt like we couldn't speak on it in the ways that we wanted to, and we kind of like came around to the idea of just, this would be the ideal platform to just have conversations. We're not trying to change the world overnight, but we're hoping that the folks who are along for our journey take something away from it. And even for us, we've been growing our little group where we're in contact with, we're still in contact with folks that come onto our show, and you know, we're kind of learning along the way and feeling inspired every day. So
And you're contributing. You're making a contribution to shifting and evolving, and that matters. And if we can all learn to do that in our own way, in a way that makes us feel good and empowered, we're headed in the right direction. And one thing you said I really agree with. It's not overnight. And it's not going to be. This is, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. And it goes back to your thing you said, it all started with 50 push-ups. That could be the title of your memoir.
That is a good title. I like that. And but this is going to have a ripple effect that you don't realize. That interviewing both you had a ripple effect that, you're sitting here saying that led to you two coming together. Like, we don't know the impact, but we can all create shifts, big or small, and we just have no idea the impact they will have. And if we work to do them, because it's easy, and I'm not criticizing anyone who does this, because in a sense I do it too, and I get it, and it's venting and frustration, but we're all kind of in echo chambers. You know what I mean? If we just scream on the internet all day, but like, to the point that I made earlier about, like, I want to see action from Hockey Canada, we can all take action. This is an action. What you're doing is an action. We can all take action. And the more people who do, the more ripple effects we will see, and the more shifts that will be created.
Hurrah.
That's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, we would like to thank Brock once again for coming on to the show. We appreciated you chatting with us today. And I am your host, Jay.
And I'm Nessa. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.